Hey everyone, my name is Sean Cecil from the Oculus Institute, and today I'm going to teach you guys how to shift your beliefs. One thing that is very important in any kind of endeavor, but especially in terms of when it comes to success and careers and all this kind of stuff, is what is the belief structure that underlies how you're operating. So a lot of people, they don't really go in and they don't examine that. They just let these unconscious beliefs sit there, right? They're not aware of them. But if you don't do belief work, you're going to end up taking a lot of actions that are guided by your subconscious that are not necessarily going to be productive or useful to you. And so you want to be really careful about what beliefs exist in that subconscious architecture. And so once you start digging them up, you may find that you have beliefs that aren't serving you. A good way to think about it is that you can have three kinds of beliefs. They can be empowering, right, which is that they drive you towards your values and drive you towards what you consider to be success. They can be disempowering, which means that they keep you stuck and they prevent you from moving towards your values. Or they can be neutral, which is, neither of the two. They're just out there, like, oh, there's a bird called a robin and it's red. Okay, great. That doesn't really affect my life, but I hold that belief that there's a bird called a robin that exists. Fine. If you have empowering beliefs, great. If you have neutral beliefs, cool. But if you have disempowering beliefs, which almost everybody does, then you really want to take a look at those. Now, there are some people out there who advocate that, hey, listen, if you have a disempowering belief, you just need to get rid of it. Just abandon it. Just drop it. There are some problems with that. One is that disempowering belief may actually be true. And so if you're living in a fantasy world, that's not going to help you. The second is that it's easier said than done, right? I mean, if I go to someone and say, hey, listen, we've identified a belief where you don't believe that you're worthy of happiness. And I say, hey, listen, just drop that. You're totally worthy of happiness. Yes, sure. But that doesn't mean that they're going to come out tomorrow and be like, oh my God, I'm totally worthy of happiness, right? It's normally a deep-seated belief and it doesn't just go away that easily. So fortunately, there is a process that I've put together for shifting beliefs, combining a couple different tools from a couple different areas. So the first thing that you want to ask is this belief really true? Right? So if you have a disempowering, this is something, by the way, you want to apply to disempowering beliefs. So let's say you have a disempowering belief. You can say, is this really true? Right? So maybe you say, hey, listen, my boss thinks I'm a horrible worker. I would say, is that really true? What'd your last performance report say? Oh, my last performance report said that I'm doing pretty good. Okay, so is that really true? Or is that not true? Right? And then people will be like, oh, that's not true. Another question is this always true? Or is this definitely true? Or are there times when it's not true? Right? Because there are many things where, it's something where it could be true and it could not be true. So people might say, hey, listen, people don't want to spend the money that I want to charge for my product or service. Well, it may be true that most people don't, but it may also be true that there is a niche of people that absolutely does and absolutely is willing to spend that money, right? So you can say, okay, well, listen, this is true in these cases, but it's not true here. And so I'm going to go here to this niche where, this disempowering belief is false. And then the third question is, let's just say that it is true and it is true in, all cases, or it's true in whatever case you're in. There's not a niche that you can go to. What you're dealing with, that belief is true. Then the next question I ask is, how can I make this belief irrelevant? So for example, I once had a webinar that was just not converting, right? It was, there were a couple conversions here and there, but it wasn't enough for me to be profitable. And the truth was that webinar was not a good webinar, right? Is that a disempowering belief? Yeah, it is, right? Was it true? Was there a place that I could go to put that webinar where it would have been different? No, I'd already gone and found, the best audience that I could. But there was a way to make that belief irrelevant, and that was to record a new webinar that was better than the old webinar. And then the fact the old webinar sucked is utterly irrelevant because I discarded it and I put a new webinar up there and that was fine, right? So that's the intellectual component of shifting beliefs, right? That's the lens that I look through disempowering beliefs. Now let's deal with the visceral component of it, right? So let's say that you've identified a belief and you have intellectually come to the conclusion that it's not really true. But deep inside, you still kind of feel like it's true. Even though intellectually you know it's not true, you feel like it's true. How do you deal with that situation? Well, this tool is something that was given to me by a mentor of mine. He called it a 50 stack. And this is basically where you go and you get a piece of paper, right? And it has to be an actual physical piece of paper, right? Or a Word document, but you have to be writing or typing. You can't just do this in your head. It has to be like written down somewhere where it can be read and where you're actually moving your hands, right? And you write down 50 examples of reasons why that belief is not true. If you've truly done this work correctly and you know that it's not true, then you'd be surprised, right, how many examples you can find. And you can do 50, you can do 100, you can do 200. But eventually that constant exposure to it's false, it's false, it's false, it's false, it's false, it's false, in all of these different ways, right, using what's called episodic memory, right, will eventually browbeat the emotional component into realizing, oh wait, yeah, this isn't true, right? Because the visceral part of you or the emotional part of you operates based on repetition, right? And it may have accumulated several episodes where it says, hey, listen, this thing is true, based on not fully understanding the situation, or based on, maybe a small number of very emotionally resonant or emotionally powerful instances. But if you go through and you add, dozens and dozens and dozens of instances, both where it's false and where there's preferably some degree of emotional charge, because you have to not only, it's not just about exceeding the number, it's about exceeding the total amount of emotional charge attached to it. And if it's really not true, then you can go and you can do that. And you just go 50, 100, whatever you need to do. And then eventually, what you know to intellectually be true will actually seep in viscerally and emotionally. And now you've really, truly shifted that belief.
Before you go, I've got a free gift for you. So if you found this video valuable, if it helped you see the world in a new way, and you're interested in building a career that's going to bring you both personal fulfillment and financial prosperity, then I've got a free presentation for you to help you do just that. So if you go to the link below, it's www.oculusinstitute.com/workshop. That's www.oculusinstitute.com/workshop. Then it'll take you to a registration for a free presentation. It's about 50 minutes long, that's 50, and it's gonna give you the step-by-step process to building your dream career. See you there.